Do join me in welcoming him.
Is this working? Yeah, I think so. Okay, thanks everybody for showing up. I know this is right after lunch. Hopefully I won't put you guys to sleep. Try my best. If it's too bad, just throw a bottle of water on me and I'll wake up to you. As she said, my name is Luiz Eduardo. I work for a company called Mu Security, and I'm a security engineer, pretty much focused on networking. Been working with networking for over 15 years, and what else do I do? I'm a volunteer for DEF CON in the US. I help them to do their wireless network and speak at several conferences in the US. And this is the first time speaking in Asia, so really exciting times. So I'm here to talk about protocol fuzzing. Who here knows what protocol fuzzing is? Who doesn't know? Okay, so hopefully this is going to be really informative. This is no 0 days, no cool exploits. This is not a cool talk, but hopefully you guys learned something. So let's get to it. So what we're going to be talking about today is the history of fuzzing. Fuzzing, again, we're going to get into more details, but there's fuzzing and there's protocol fuzzing. I'm going to explain what fuzzing is, just like an overview, like a 30,000 feet kind of idea, but I'm going to focus on protocol fuzzing, what that is, and just go through all the techniques and all the way how things work and the challenges when you try to fuzz something, what's the purpose of fuzzing, and at the end I'm going to say, I have a few ideas that maybe it's going to take off, maybe they're not going to take off, so let's see how this goes. If you don't understand me, if it's going too fast, also let me know, because you know how it goes. So anyways, fuzzing, what is fuzzing? Fuzzing was from the research that I've done, and pretty much everybody says that, fuzzing was born in 1989 at the University of Madison in the United States, and was created by Professor Barton Miller. They created fuzzing to test Unix systems, like internal fuzzing. So what is fuzzing? What does the word fuzzing mean, right? Fuzzing is, I think the best way to describe fuzzing is negative testing. You throw bad input, invalid input, or semi-invalid input into something, and that thing in theory should drop it. And amazingly enough, like applications, servers, routers, firewalls, anything, amazingly enough, they crash, or it could lead to an exploit, remote code execution, or something like that when they receive these type of packets. So why did they create that? Is, again, negative testing. And although fuzzing is not new at all, it's almost, 20 years old, it became a big thing in the past few years. It's being used for a while. We're going to go through the tools that people wrote and have been using for a while. But in the past few years, if you check the zero-day exploits or the zero-day vulnerabilities that were found, most of them were found by protocol fuzzing, just because I think products and people don't, how can I say this? People don't get bonuses, they don't get any incentive about testing security. And testing security is really hard. It's something you cannot quantify how much security was tested. So people, they need to ship products, services, and stuff like that. So the idea is to get the thing out the door as fast as possible. And security testing, unfortunately, it's not done correctly most of the time. So if you heard about, again, so lately, fuzzing became the hope to find zero-day vulnerabilities. Just because also security doesn't suck all across the board, right? It got better, and it gets better and better. But it's the easy way to try to find something broken. When you talk, if you heard the term fuzzing before, fuzzing, usually people relate fuzzing with HTTP or web applications, AJAX, HTTP, anything like that. Fuzzing is not only that. As I said, in the beginning, they created this in 1989 to test Unix systems. There's just internally on each one of the boxes. Today, most of the people, they try to just fuzz applications, like web applications, just because it's what it is out there on the internet, right? So people usually tend to think fuzzing is an HTTP thing only, but that's not true. Besides, you can do, like, there's a lot of work in file format fuzzing. At the end, I have, like, some resource links that you can go through. There's several tools. Like, there are really specific tools for any kind of fuzzing that you can imagine. And even application fuzzing. And, of course, protocol fuzzing. And we're going to get into details about protocol fuzzing. That's what the talk is about. So I put this slide in just because these are usually terms that you find when people talk about fuzzing. So number one, I mentioned already, right? People say, what is fuzzing? Fuzzing is to send bad stuff at some application or whatever. What is bad stuff? Could be totally broken input that doesn't make any sense at all, or semi-valid input. The more sense it makes, the better fuzzing you're going to have. Let's put it like this. I'm going to explain this later. There's also some randomness associated with fuzzing. So you can run like, so if you think, let's cover this right now. So think about like some protocol, right? Let's say D2T2. There's an RFC that says how D2T2 should work. And hard or not, it has some work to put into to make that work accordingly to the RFC. Now, imagine if you have everything else but the RFC, right? It's infinite. How can you test something? Like, you can have both, like, you can be testing this forever. So randomness is good, but up to a certain level. Another term that you see is target, is whatever is the target of the mutations or protocol fuzzing, or the bad packets. And then you have exception handling. That's actually what's being tested. So you're sending bad stuff, you send a bad packet to a router, it should drop it. It shouldn't just go belly up and stop working, right? Instrumentation, there are several types of instrumentation. Usually instrumentation is to send a valid packet. So depending on the type of fuzzing that you're using, you send not only bad packets, right? Somehow you need to know if the device is still responding or if the application is still responding or not. So you have to send a valid packet in order to know, oh, the device is still there. So that's another term. Some people tell this, and actually I tend to agree, that fuzzing is more than just like a methodology to break stuff. It's more like an art. And if you think like the way that things evolved for the past 20 years, like the fuzzers or the fuzzing frameworks that we're going to go through in a little bit, they are really they're really good. Like if you think it's just people thinking outside the box. So that's a cool thing. Agents, nothing to do with the matrix. Agents are, depending on what you're fuzzing, you need to know it's part of the instrumentation monitoring kind of thing. If you're testing a web server or something, you need to know if that thing actually what it's doing. Sometimes breaking is not, like, of course, depending on the perspective, breaking is the goal of fuzzing. But sometimes you want to know exactly what the problem is, or you want to debug something. You want to see if it's causing memory leaks, if it's causing CPU spikes. And for usually like computers, you can put an agent there that you can monitor, and there are several agents that do that. When I talk about protocol fuzzing, I mostly talk about network devices. So usually network devices, you cannot install an agent into a Cisco router, for example. So usually the manufacturer, or if you have if you have a console or something like that, and you have debug commands that you can use to see what's happening on the box, that's a good thing. FX, he's not here. FX was giving a talk later on today. He did lots of work with Cisco devices before, and he actually wrote some GDB debugger for Cisco devices that work with other devices as well. So that's a really good job he did, because it's really hard to track something usually when you do not have access to the source code. Having said that, that reminds me of something that I didn't put on any slide, is that if you think about fuzzing, you're testing, how can I say this? Oh, it's actually right there, negative testing. But not only negative testing in the sense of waiting for the device to break or see how it does exception handling, but mostly in how people, the perception of the people. So I worked for network manufacturers before, and this was a long time ago. I'm sure that it changed today. But I remember so many times when I had like problems with network devices, and I walk up to the developer and I say, hey, you're late. You say, oh, the router broke when you send this type of packet. They're like, well, but this packet is malformed. It's not according to the RFC. They're like, yeah, but still, you shouldn't crash the box. And I had to say that so many times. Okay. Or the other thing is, the other one that I heard a lot is this one here. People are not supposed to send these types of packets. Well, that's not another good argument, right? Several years ago, Cisco had a bug that, like, everybody knows what BGP is, by any chance? Okay. BGP is the protocol that mostly runs the internet, right? The internet runs on BGP. That's how they exchange routes and all that good stuff. Cisco had a bug that they were advertising some iBGP attributes on eBGP connections. Some internal stuff they were sending on external stuff. Guess what? Was there a bug? And that's okay. They fixed that. But some other devices from other vendors, when they saw internal attributes on external connections, they would just reset the connection. So the internet pretty much stopped. That's another type of exception handling. So when you talk about fuzzing, fuzzing is not only for break stuff, but also for interoperability and stuff like that. So what is fuzzable, what is not fuzzable, right? People, today they get it already. That's kind of what I have in the conclusion. But some people get fuzzing already. Some people just don't understand what it is. Some people, when you explain, they're like, yeah, but that doesn't make any sense until they see what it can cause. So you see our friend here, that movie. Anybody knows what movie this is? No? Firewall. Thank you. So he's the CSO or something for a bank, and when something bad happens, he acts all scared. And our fuzzy friend here actually is scaring him. But his old friend from several years ago, I think, is fuzzy too. So just going back, right? What can be fuzzed? Anything. Anything you can throw bad input on anything. You can walk to the hotel reception desk, and you can ask totally random stuff and you can see how they react. You can fuzz anything in the world, pretty much. But talking about computers and IT in general, you can fuzz protocols, you can fuzz applications, you can test network devices, anything that runs, talking about protocol fuzzing, anything that runs TCP/IP. So why fuzzing is becoming really popular? As I mentioned before, because several bugs, several 0 days, several vulnerabilities, they were found in the past few years with fuzzing, although fuzzing is not something new. Some of them, they actually made the news. If you check the media, websites and stuff like that, like the Apple bug last year that was announced on Black Hat, that was found by fuzzing, not protocol fuzzing, lower level driver fuzzing. But that was found by that. The first iPhone vulnerability found was on Safari running on an iPhone, was found by fuzzing. So if you check bug track or full disclosure, you're going to see a whole bunch of things that were found by fuzzing. And the scary part, right? Probably some other bugs that were found by fuzzing or by any other means, they don't make the news. They're still 0 days, and they're being exploitable. So how do you know what's the cost, right, of having a problem happening and having a backdoor or something like that, people using your network or whatever to do bad stuff. And of course, in the past, again, in that link that I have at the end, you're going to see that there are several tools. So you have from frameworks that are just like frameworks that you can do stuff on top of it. That's mostly what I'm going to be talking about, to really specific fuzzers. You have fuzzers for, I don't know, SNMP, and you have fuzzers for SIP. You have really specific by protocol or applications. Corporate fuzzing. And although fuzzing is not new on the corporate world either. The big companies, some big companies that we all know and heard about, they have really good security research teams, and they wrote their own fuzzers. They know their protocols. They're like, since I know my protocol, I can try to break it. But again, think about breaking outside of the